My daughter kicked me out with $7 in my pocket. She screamed, "I don't need a weak, sick mother. Get out." I walked away in silence, holding the last of my money, and decided to buy a lottery ticket. I won $800,000. When she found out, she begged me to come back, but my answer left her stunned. "I'm glad you're here. Stay with me till the end, and tell me, what city are you watching my story from? I want to know how far it's traveled." I woke up to a door slamming and voices echoing from downstairs. The clock on the nightstand said 6 a.m., too early to be up on purpose, too late to bother falling back asleep. I sat up slowly, joints stiff and throbbing like they always did lately. The arthritis had been worse these past few days, but I kept it to myself. "Grandma," came a loud voice from below. "Are you up? Mom says she's late and you have to take us to school." I let out a long breath. Of course Adrian's late. When is she not? And of course, it falls on me again, like always, no matter how badly I'm hurting or how little I slept. "Coming, sweetie," I called back, trying to sound cheerful. I washed my face in the bathroom, glanced at my reflection. 62, tired eyes, gray hair, skin lined with the years. But inside, I still felt like the woman who once wanted to be a photographer, who wanted to see the world, take pictures, feel free. All of that got shelved for a husband, a daughter, a family. Now Wendell's gone, and all I've got left are duties. I grabbed a pill from the cabinet, swallowed it dry, and got dressed. My clothes were plain, practical, no room for style or choice in Adrian's house. Downstairs, the kitchen was its usual mess. 10-year-old Flora and 8-year-old Ezekiel were glued to their tablets at the table, cereal floating untouched, in bowls of milk. "Morning, darlings," I said, kissing their heads. "Where's your mom?" "In her room," Ezekiel mumbled, not looking up, yelling at someone on the phone. I nodded. No surprise there. Adrian Bonham, marketing executive, always caught in some kind of work drama, always loud about it. That drive helped her get ahead at work, but at home, it just turned into tension and chaos. "You two gonna finish that breakfast?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "I don't want to," they said together. "Then let's get ready for school. Where are your backpacks?" As they ran around grabbing books and packing bags, Adrian walked in, tall, slim, perfect hair and makeup, dressed like she was heading to a magazine cover shoot. Always beautiful, always irritated. "Mom, can you take them? I've got a meeting in 40 minutes and sales completely screwed up the numbers again." "Sure, honey," I said, nodding. "It's just what?" she said without looking up from her phone. "I'm not feeling great today. Arthritis." I stopped when I caught her eyes rolling. "Again, Mom. There's always something. Your back, your heart, your joints. Can you go one day without complaining?" "I'm not complaining. I'm just..." "Flora, Ezekiel," she cut me off. "Hurry up, Grandma's driving." After Wendell died 3 years ago, Adrian said I shouldn't live alone. She made it sound like she was helping me, told me to move in. I sold Wendell's house, gave her the money for a down payment on this bigger place. Since then, I've been in the upstairs guest room, a space no one else ever uses. My role became clear quick: free babysitter, house cleaner, cook, chauffeur, everything but a mother, everything but a grandmother worth respect. "Adrienne, honey," I said gently, as the kids ran off, "can we talk about my situation here? I'm grateful for the roof, but I was thinking, right now," she snapped, looking up from her phone, clearly annoyed. "I have a meeting in 35 minutes and you want to talk about your feelings, not just feelings. I was thinking maybe I could get a job, maybe find a place of my own." Adrian laughed, dry and sharp. "A job, at your age, with your education? Mom, come on, be serious. Who's hiring you? You don't even have a career." Her words hit harder than the arthritis ever did. I never finished college. I married Wendell halfway through my sophomore year and spent my life as a homemaker, raising Adrian, supporting my husband, keeping the household running. But out in the real world, none of that counts for much. Those skills don't mean anything on a resume. "You could have been thankful," Adrian snapped. "We give you a roof, food, clothes. Most old folks would kill for that. And all I ever do, apparently, is complain about my health and talk about finding work." I felt my throat tighten, swallowed hard, and turned away so she wouldn't see the tears welling in my eyes. Maybe she was right. Maybe I should have been thankful. But why does gratitude feel like a locked door? The day carried on like usual. I drove the kids to school, pushing through the sharp pain in my knees. When I got back, I cleaned the house, ran the laundry, started dinner, picked the kids up, and sat with them while they did their homework, my head pounding the whole time. By late afternoon, I knew I was getting sick. My body ached all over, and my temperature had crept up. I rarely catch anything, but this felt like the flu. I took something for the fever and lay down, hoping I'd feel better before Adrienne got home. She came in around 8. "Mom," she peeked into the room. "The kids say you've been off all day. What's going on?" "I think I'm sick," I whispered. "I've got a fever. My body's hurting." Adrienne frowned, stepped in closer, then stopped short like the bed was radioactive. "The flu." Her voice tensed, not out of concern, more like calculation. "Mom, I've got a huge presentation in 3 days. I can't get sick. And the kids can't either." "I took my meds," I said softly, trying to reassure her. "Maybe it's nothing. You need to leave." Adrienne cut in. "What?" I could barely hear her over the ringing in my ears. "Leave. Just until you're better. We can't risk it." I pushed myself up, dizzy, trying to register what she just said. "Where would I go, Adrienne? I don't have anywhere else." "A hotel? A friend's place?" Her tone was clipped, like I was being difficult on purpose. "I don't have the money for a hotel," I said. "And I don't have any friends here. After I moved, I lost touch with everyone." That part was true. I'd spent so long looking after her kids, running her household. I had no life of my own anymore. She never liked when I invited anyone over anyway. "Jesus, Mom," Adrienne groaned, flinging her hands up. "Always something. Always some kind of crisis." She stormed out, slamming the door. A few minutes later she came back in and tossed a few crumpled bills on the bed. "Here, $7. That'll get you to the center, and maybe a cup of tea. There's a shelter there. They take in sick people too." I stared at the money like it didn't belong in my world. "You're kicking me out. Your own mother. Sick. Don't be dramatic," she snapped. "It's just for a few days, until you're not contagious. I can't risk my kids, or my job." "But I'm your mother," I said, my voice shaking. "I took care of you. I was there when you were sick. I never left you." "I don't need a sick mother," Adrienne screamed suddenly. "Just go. You were already a burden. Now you're a threat to my family." Her words sat in the air, sharp and permanent. Something inside me cracked, the last thing still holding me to her. "I'll pack," I said quietly. "Only the essentials," she said fast. "And don't touch anything we bought for you." I nodded. I got out of bed slowly, pulled the old suitcase from under it, and started packing what little I had. A picture of Wendell, 2 paperbacks, a couple changes of clothes from the old house, and a small box of cheap jewelry. My entire life fit into one worn-out suitcase. Adrienne stood in the doorway, foot tapping fast, her voice clipped. "Hurry up, please. It's past the kids' bedtime, and you're spreading germs all over the house." I shut the suitcase, grabbed my coat, and made my way to the door. In the hallway, I caught sight of Flora and Ezekiel peeking from their bedrooms, eyes wide and worried. "Is Grandma leaving?" Ezekiel asked. "Grandma's just going to be sick somewhere else for a bit so you don't catch it," Adrienne told him. "She'll be back soon." That was a lie. The kids knew it. I could see it in their faces. I started to step toward them, wanting to give them a hug goodbye, but Adrienne cut me off with a sharp motion. "Don't go near them. You're sick." I froze, then nodded. "I love you," I said softly. "Be good. We love you too, Grandma," Flora said, almost a whisper. Adrienne walked me to the front door, didn't say a word, just dropped the car keys into my hand. "Drive to the center and leave the car in the supermarket lot. I'll get it tomorrow." I stood there, stunned, the metal cold in my hand. Everything around me felt like a dream, the bad kind you don't wake up from. I stepped outside into the cool evening air and the door slammed shut behind me. Behind the wheel, I stared back at the house I'd lived in for 3 years, the house that had never once felt like mine. I turned the key in the ignition and pulled onto the road. No clue where I was headed, no plan in my mind, just $7 in my pocket, a suitcase full of scraps, and a hollowed-out heart. "You're right, I messed up. The idea was for the lottery ticket to come into play later. I'll hold off on checking it. For now, it stays a mystery." Clearwater at night was quiet, cool, and empty. I left Adrienne's car in the parking lot like she told me to and stood with my suitcase in the middle of a city that had never welcomed me. Neon signs blinked above shuttered shops, and the few people still out moved right past me like I wasn't even there. The heat pressed against my skin, while a chill crept up from inside. My head was spinning. My legs shook. I sat down on a bench near the bus stop, trying to breathe, trying to think. $7. That was it. Everything I had left of the life I used to know. $7 to start over at 62. I let out a laugh. Low, quiet, the kind that slips out when there's nothing else to do. The whole thing felt too absurd. To be real. Me, Delora Kinney, who spent a whole life doing everything by the book, now sitting on a bench with nothing but a suitcase and $7. I raised a daughter with love, stood by my husband through every hardship, buried my own dreams for their sake, and this is what I got. You should have seen it, Wendell, I murmured to the stars. Your princess tossed me out like some mangy stray. I talked to Wendell a lot since he died. He'd been gone 3 years now. Heart attack. He always worried I'd fall apart without him. You're too soft, Viddy, he used to say. People take advantage of that. He wasn't wrong. Wendell worshipped Adrienne, spoiled her from the start. She could do no wrong in his eyes. Even when she started slipping away from us, buried in her career, he made excuses for her silence, her short visits, her rushed phone calls. She's building a life, Viddy, it's normal. I sometimes wondered what he'd say now. Would he still be defending her? Would he find a reason for this too? The wind picked up and I pulled my coat tighter. I needed to figure out my next move. The shelter Adrienne mentioned crossed my mind. My stomach turned. Was I really homeless now, at 62? I got up and started walking. The streetlights cast long shadows across the sidewalk. Most shops had gone dark, but a few cafes still glowed with life. One of them had just a few folks inside. Above the door, a simple sign read, Glory's Coffee Shop. Something about the place felt easy, like it wanted me there. So I stepped inside. It was warm at least, and I figured a hot cup of tea might take the edge off the cold. The bell above the door gave a soft jingle as I walked in. It smelled like fresh pastries and brewed coffee. There were a few small tables, an old-school bar counter, and couches that looked worn-in but clean. It felt like some place out of another time, my time. "Good evening," said the woman behind the counter. "What can I get you?" She looked to be around my age, maybe a bit younger. Her red hair was thrown up in a loose bun, and her brown eyes had this kind of spark. The tag on her shirt read Glory. "A cup of tea, please," I said, setting my suitcase down next to a tall stool at the counter. "The hottest you've got." "Rough day?" she asked while filling a kettle. I gave her a crooked smile. You could say that. She didn't pry, which I appreciated. She set a steaming cup of tea in front of me and turned back to the other customers. I took small sips, letting the heat spread through me, trying to shake the numbness in my hands and my thoughts. My mind was a mess. Where to go? What to do next? Was it even possible to start over at my age? I needed money. I had a tiny pension, but everything else, my paperwork, IDs, was still at Adrienne's house. Did I have any savings left? After the house sold, most of it went into a down payment on my daughter's place. Whatever was left, Adrienne had saved for me. I didn't even know which bank it was in. "You okay?" Glory's voice cut through the fog in my head. "You don't look so good." I glanced at the mirror behind the counter. Pale skin, flushed cheeks, gray hair sticking out every which way. I didn't look awful, just not great. "Just a little under the weather," I said, managing a weak smile. "And I had a bit of a day." She looked at me, then at the suitcase by my feet. Something in her eyes shifted, like she understood more than I'd said. "I close in about 30 minutes, she told me. "Want anything else?" I looked up at the menu board. Prices were low, but I remembered I only had $7 left. "How much is the tea?" $2.50. That'd leave me with $4.50, not much to work with. Then I noticed the little display by the register. Lottery tickets. Wendell and I never played the lottery. He used to say, "You've got a better chance of getting bitten by a shark in your bathtub." But now, what did I have to lose? "Can I get one lottery ticket?" I asked, pointing. "Sure." Glory tore one off and slid it across the counter. $2. I handed her all I had. She gave me back $2.50. Half of everything I owned had just gone to tea and a sliver of chance. "You play a lot?" she asked, nodding toward the ticket in my hand. "Never," I said honestly. "First time." "Well, good luck. They say beginners have the best shot." I tucked the ticket into my coat pocket. I'd check it later. I didn't have it in me to lose too. Maybe it was better to hold on to that tiny bit of hope just a little longer. I'll look at it tomorrow, I said, giving her a half smile. Today had already handed me enough bad news. We both laughed, and somehow I felt lighter. I kept sipping the tea while she helped the last couple of customers and started cleaning up. There was something calming about the way she moved, wiping down tables, stacking cups, humming a tune under her breath. Hope I'm not being too forward, she said as she came back to the counter. But do you have somewhere to go? I didn't answer right away. Lying felt pointless, but the truth was hard to say out loud. Not really, I said after a moment. It's complicated. She nodded, like that was enough. Thought so. I've got a room upstairs. My daughter used to live there, but she moved out a while ago. You're welcome to stay a few days, just until things settle a bit. I was in shock. Some stranger had just offered me a place to stay without knowing the first thing about me. I couldn't make sense of it. I just had to ask why. Glory gave a casual shrug and said, someone helped me once when I was in a bad place, and you remind me of my mom. She'd never forgive me if I left a woman her age out there like that. She smiled a little. Besides, I've been needing help at the cafe for a while. If you're interested, we can talk about something that works for both of us. It sounded unreal, like something out of a story, too generous to be real. But I didn't have a better option. Glory, I don't even know how to thank you, I said, trying to hold back tears. But I can't just take your kindness for nothing. I can help at the cafe. I cook pretty well, and she stopped me, gently. Let's talk about that tomorrow. Right now, you need rest. You look like you're ready to drop. She wasn't wrong. My body was giving out, the fever burning hotter, the headache pounding harder. Give me a sec to close out the register, then we'll head upstairs, Glory said. While she finished up, I reached into my suitcase and pulled out a photo of Wendell. He was smiling in that familiar way that always melted me. Look, baby, I whispered. I think I met an angel. Maybe you sent her ready, Glory asked, keys jangling as she came over. I nodded and tucked the photo away. She helped me climb the narrow stairs in the back of the coffee shop. The apartment above was small but warm, a lived-in little space with a saggy couch, a tight kitchen, 2 bedrooms, and a bathroom. This one's yours, she said, opening the door to the smaller bedroom. Inside, there was a bed, a dresser, and a tiny desk. Bathroom's right across the hall. I'm next door. Get settled. I'll make something for that cold. Left alone, I still couldn't quite believe any of it. That morning, I'd had a roof over my head, temporary, not mine, but safe. By the afternoon, I was on the street with $7. And now I was here, not just with shelter, but maybe a job too. Life had a way of spinning fast when you least expected it. I unpacked what little I had, changed into my nightgown, and sat on the edge of the bed. The lottery ticket lay untouched on the table. I didn't even bother with it. I was too drained to handle another letdown. Tomorrow could bring whatever it wanted. Maybe my luck would shift. Glory came back carrying a tray with a cup of some dark herbal mix and a plate of sandwiches. Here, she said, handing me the mug. My grandma's recipe. Cures everything but a broken heart. Got a cure for that too? I asked, taking a sip. Time, she said. And new people. Get some rest, Delora. Tomorrow's a new day. She left, shutting the door soft behind her. The drink tasted better than I expected. I ate half a sandwich and crawled into bed. Between the fever and the exhaustion, I didn't stand a chance. My eyes shut before I even realized it. Just before sleep took me, I thought about the $7 I'd ended up with. Tea had cost $2.50. The lottery ticket, 2 more. That left $2.50. Not much, but maybe just enough to begin something new. I also thought about Glory, this woman who'd helped a complete stranger without asking for anything in return. People like that don't come around often. Maybe it meant things weren't totally over for me yet. Maybe there's still space in the world for someone like me, worn down, but not finished. Let me take another crack at this. That the morning felt strange, quiet in a way I wasn't used to. No one pounding on the door yelling for breakfast. No voices shouting from the other room telling me to hurry up. The tiny bedroom above Glory's coffee shop was still and warm. I woke to the smell of coffee brewing and fresh pastries rising downstairs. The clock beside the bed said 8. I couldn't remember the last time I'd slept in that late. The fever had broken, the ache in my body had eased, and though I was still running on empty, I felt noticeably better. Whatever Glory had given me had done the trick. I got dressed, stood in front of the little mirror over the dresser, and studied what was left of me. My face looked washed out, my eyes dull, my hair a mess, long overdue for a decent cut. At 62, I could have passed. For 70 years of stress and sacrifice had carved themselves into every line on my face. My eyes landed on the lottery ticket on the nightstand. I hadn't had the energy to check it yesterday, and honestly, I never believed in winning anyway. I picked it up, figuring I'd throw it out later, but decided to scratch it now just to see. I used a coin I'd left in my pocket. Under the silver layer, 3 numbers appeared: 800, 800, 800, 3 of the same. That meant something, didn't it? Maybe $800. That'd be nice. Enough for a motel, maybe some thrift store clothes. Enough to get by until I found work. I went downstairs to the shop. Glory had already opened up, and a couple of folks were sitting down to breakfast. She looked up, smiled, gave me a wave. "Good morning, how are you feeling?" "Much better, thank you." I walked to the counter. "That medicine of yours really works. I'm glad it helped." "Hungry?" She motioned to the pastry case. "Starving," I said, "but first I need to ask you something. What do these numbers mean?" I handed her the ticket. She took one look, eyebrows lifting in surprise. 800, 800, 800. She looked at me, wide-eyed. "You won." "I get that," I said, "but how much?" $800. She stared at me, then let out a soft laugh. "No, sweetie, not $800. $800,000. You hit the jackpot." My legs buckled. She came around the counter fast and helped me into a chair. $800,000, I repeated, barely above a whisper. "Are you sure?" "Without a doubt," she said, handing me a glass of water. 3 identical numbers, 800's the top prize. "Congratulations, you're a rich woman now." I couldn't wrap my head around it. It didn't feel real. Just yesterday I was broke with $7 to my name. Now I had 800,000. What am I even supposed to do with that? "First, drink your water," Glory said gently. "Then eat something. After that, I'll call my nephew. He works at the bank. He'll help you figure everything out." I sat there stunned, while she brought me a cup of coffee and a plate of hot pancakes dot around me. The other customers kept eating their breakfast like nothing had happened, unaware that something life-changing had just landed in my lap. $800,000 was more than I'd ever dared imagine. That kind of money could rewrite everything. "Did you tell anyone you bought the ticket?" Glory asked, settling into the chair beside me. I shook my head. "Just you, and my husband, God rest him. He found out after the fact." "Good," she nodded. "Let's keep it quiet for now. News like this moves fast. You need time to think. When people find out someone suddenly came into money, it draws all kinds: scammers, greedy family, people with long memories." At the mention of family, my mind jumped straight to Adrienne. What would she say if she found out I won? Would she suddenly care about her sick mother again? The whole thing was too ironic to ignore. Glory was right. I had to keep this to myself until I figured out what came next. I finished my pancakes, sipped the rest of my coffee, and the initial shock started to wear off, slowly giving way to something else: awareness. $800,000. That was freedom. That was finally living on my own terms. After breakfast, Glory called her nephew Sterling. He said he'd stop by the cafe after work. In the meantime, she asked if I'd like to help out behind the counter, just to take my mind off the news. I said yes without thinking. I'd spent my whole life cooking for my family. Never heard a thank you for it. Now I'd be doing the same thing for strangers, but this time they'd be grateful. That alone felt like winning. I helped bake, washed dishes, chatted with customers all day. Glory was patient, and the work was actually nice, simple, even comforting. During lunch, when the place was quiet, I sat by the window and watched people go by, thinking about everything. What could I do with this kind of money? The options were wide open. Buy a house? Not some cold, oversized place like Adrian's, but something warm and lived in. Travel, maybe. I always wanted to see Europe, Asia, places that felt like a world away. Get back into photography. I used to love it, but after I got married and Adrian came along, it just faded. Maybe I could do a little of everything. I'm 62, and while most people my age are winding things down, I feel like I'm just getting started. Like I've finally opened a door to the part of my life I wasn't sure I'd ever get: a second shot. A chance to finally live for myself. First thing, take care of my health. I've been ignoring the signs for too long. Arthritis, high blood pressure, the weight. With money, I could see real doctors, get better meds, maybe even go somewhere to heal properly. Next up, how I look. I glanced at my reflection in the window. Gray hair, outdated haircut, clothes that didn't say anything. I was never a beauty, but I always kept myself up. That all changed when I moved into Adrienne's place. Little by little, I turned invisible, just an older woman with no say in anything that ends now. I need a place of my own, whether it's a house or just a small apartment, somewhere I can belong, somewhere that's mine. What are you thinking about? Glory's voice broke the silence. The future, I said, smiling. For the first time in years, thinking about the future didn't make me nervous. She sat down beside me. And what do you see in that future? Me, I said after a second. I see myself. Not somebody's mom, not a grandma, not a burden or a shadow, just Fidelia Wampler, a woman with her own wants and dreams. That sounds wonderful. Glory gave my hand a little squeeze. You deserve that. At 4, a young man in a sharp suit walked into the cafe. Glory introduced him as her nephew Sterling. We went upstairs to the apartment to talk in private. Sterling was sharp. He laid everything out. The process, the paperwork, the taxes. You'll be left with around $560,000 after taxes, he said. Still a massive amount. Don't keep it all in one place, he advised. Put some in bonds, invest in solid stocks, keep some for spending. I nodded along, but I couldn't focus on anything past the number. $560,000, more than $500,000. Just yesterday, I had $7 to my name. It didn't feel real. I need the papers, I told him. They're still at my daughter's house. You can get duplicates, Sterling said. I'll help you with that. But first, we've got to cash the winning ticket. I say we do it first thing. Tomorrow when the lottery office opens, Sterling was set to pick me up at 9. He left his card and walked out, and I just sat there in the living room, still trying to wrap my head around everything. How do you feel? Glory asked, handing me a cup of tea. I don't know, I told her, and I meant it. It was joy, shock, fear, everything, all tangled together. It came out of nowhere, but not unearned. Glory smiled. Sometimes the universe finds its own weird way of setting things right. By the evening, I felt good enough to stretch my legs. I needed air, space to think. Glory lent me a warm coat and I walked the streets of Clearwater. The whole place felt different than it did yesterday. Or maybe it was me. I wasn't just some sick woman with no direction anymore. I was about to have choices. Freedom. I passed the park, City Hall, the mall. Then I slowed down near a real estate office. In the window were pictures of houses and apartments. Some simple, some upscale, but they all said the same thing. Home, a place that's yours. I didn't go in. I didn't have ID money, anything yet. But for once, looking at those pictures didn't feel like dreaming. It felt like planning. Pretty soon, I'd be able to pick one of those places, and it would be mine. I walked past a beauty salon and caught myself stopping. They had pictures in the window, different hairstyles, different women. Something flickered inside me that pulled to change, to become someone new. I didn't have money for salons or new clothes yet, but that was coming. I made a mental note. First thing after I get the money, I'm coming back here. At the pharmacy next door, I paused again. Vitamins, medicine, a clean display. Another thing on my list, a full checkup, treatment, the care I've skipped for years. I deserve to be healthy. I deserve to take care of myself. Back at the coffee shop, Eunice was busy with the evening crowd. I went up to the apartment and sat on the edge of the bed. It had been a long day, heavy with feelings, so many thoughts, so much hope. I pulled out Wendell's picture and set it by the bed. You'd say I was lucky, I whispered, looking at him. But you know what, Wendell? I think I earned this. I spent my life doing what I had to, taking care of everyone else. Now, it's my turn. A soft knock at the door. Eunice came in, holding a tray. Brought you some supper, she said. You've got to be worn out. Thanks, I told her. You've been so good to me. You're welcome, she said, setting the tray down. By the way, people in town are already buzzing about a big win. Word gets around fast in Clearwater. Do they know it's me? I asked, suddenly on edge. No, not yet, she said. Just rumors that someone here hit it big. But get ready. Won't be long before everyone finds out. You can't keep something like that under wraps. She was right. In a town like this, news doesn't stay quiet. Soon, everyone would know, and Adrian would too. Then what? Would she show up wanting to make things right? Want her mother back now that she's worth something? What are you thinking about? Eunice asked, picking up on my mood. My daughter, I said, thinking about what happens when she finds out. And what do you think will happen? I don't know, I said, shaking my head. Now that I've got money, I'm bracing myself for the moment she tries to come back into my life. Is that what you want? Eunice asked gently. I didn't respond right away. I sat with the silence for a long time before I finally said, no, I don't. There's been too much hurt, too much shame. I've spent 62 years living for everyone else. I want the time I have left to be mine. Eunice gave a quiet nod and left me alone with dinner and the thoughts that wouldn't quit, thoughts of the past that couldn't be undone, and a present suddenly cracked open with possibility, a future, for once, that I held in my own hands. The next morning, Sterling showed up just like he said he would. We headed to the lottery office, and I handed over the winning ticket. The staff verified it. $800,000. They walked me through the process. Paperwork, ID checks, some waiting. The money would take a few days to come through. Word spread fast in Clearwater. While we were still at the office, a couple of local reporters came by, asking for a photo and a quick interview. I agreed. It didn't take long before the headline was set. Mrs. Fidelia Kinney wins, $800,000 lottery. My picture, my name, everything out in the open. Adrian would see it, no doubt. Once we were done, Sterling dropped me off at Glory's coffee shop. On the ride back, he told me he'd already opened a bank account in my name where the money would land once everything cleared. What are you going to do with it? He asked. Live, I told him. Really live, for myself this time. Glory was waiting when I walked in. She looked tense. The whole town's buzzing, she said. News travels fast. Adrian's gonna hear about it any minute now. I know, I said, exhaling. Are you ready for that? She asked. I don't know, I said, honestly. But I've got a few days. The money isn't in the account yet. Just then, the door swung open, and a young woman burst in with a notebook clutched to her chest. Mrs. Kinney, she beamed, almost too brightly. I'm with the Clearwater Daily. Can I ask you a few questions for our story? And just like that, my new life as a lottery winner began. You were right about the timeline. I had the details out of order. Let me fix that. It's only been a week since the money actually hit my account. $560,000 after taxes. To someone who's spent her life watching every penny, it still feels unreal. The first thing I did was rent the apartment I'd been eyeing even before the wind. Bright, roomy, overlooking the park in one of those newer buildings near downtown Clearwater. All modern, inside, with clean finishes, big windows, a sunlit living room. My place, my rules, my home. I stood in the middle of that living room holding the keys, not quite believing it was mine. No one here to make me feel like a burden. No one to bark about what I could or couldn't do. For the first time in decades, I felt like I belonged somewhere. Then, I moved on to my closet. Glory came with me, helped me pick out the basics. Jeans, slacks, blouses, a couple of dresses. Nothing showy, nothing too young, but nothing shapeless either. Just because you're past 60 doesn't mean you're supposed to fade into beige. After that, I booked myself a beauty appointment. A young stylist looked at my gray hair, listened to what I wanted, then suggested skipping the dye and going for a chic shortcut that would highlight the natural silver. Plenty of women pay big money for this shade, she said as she worked on my head. You've already got it. She called it a shame to cover it up. When I looked in the mirror afterward, I barely recognized the woman staring back. The short, polished haircut, a touch of makeup, and some new clothes didn't just change how I looked. They shifted something deeper. I didn't see a tired older woman anymore, but someone who finally stood her ground. Someone composed, confident. That's a real glope, Eunice said when I walked into the cafe to show her. You look 10 years younger and like $1 million. I laughed, but inside, I knew she wasn't wrong. It wasn't about money, or the clothes, or even the haircut. It was about finally feeling like a person again, not an accessory in someone else's story. The shift went beyond looks. I signed up for a photography class at the local community college, something I'd always wanted but never made time for. I bought a decent camera and started heading to the nearby park every morning to catch the early light in the trees. Birds feeding at the stations, people hurrying off to their day. Sterling helped me organize my finances. Some went into low-risk investments, some into savings, the rest I could use for living, and finally doing the things I'd put off. One of those dreams was Europe. I booked a tour through Italy, set to start in a month. Rome, Florence, Venice. Cities I'd only ever seen on screens or in guidebooks were about to become real. I started studying Italian in the evenings with phone apps and books, picking up new words before bed. I met some interesting folks in the photography class. Most were young, but there were a few closer to my age, including Franklin Moss, 70, widowed, former engineer who'd turned to creative work after retiring. Franklin was sharp, funny, and unexpectedly considerate. After a few classes, he asked me out for coffee. We sat for 3 hours talking about everything: photos, travel, stories, life. For the first time in ages, I didn't feel like I was filling a seat. I felt like I belonged. "You know, Delora," Franklin said as he walked me home after our second coffee, "I haven't met a woman this interesting in a long while." I felt my cheeks get hot, 62 and blushing like a teenager. It threw me off, but in the best way. When I told Glory about him, she just winked and said, "See, life's only just getting started." And she was right. Every day brought something different. New lessons, new people, new little joys. It felt like waking up after years on autopilot. But one thing still hovered over it all. Adrian, my name, and winnings, had made the front page of the local paper, and I knew she'd see it. I waited, every day, waiting for the call. It came 3 days after the paper hit stands. I had just gotten home from class and was sorting photos when the phone rang. My stomach dropped the second I saw her name. "Hello," I said, trying to keep steady. "Mom." Adrian's voice was softer than usual. "Is that you?" "Yes, Adrian. It's me," I said, sinking into a chair. "I saw the article. Is it true? You actually won 800,000? No, hello. No, how are you?" Straight to the money. That's just like her. "It's true," I said. Silence. Then her voice came back, syrupy, sweet. "Mom, that's incredible. I'm really happy for you. We were so worried when you left, when you kicked me out," I said quietly. "Let's not rewrite history, Adrian." Another pause. I could practically see my daughter scrambling for the right words. "Mom, I wasn't myself that night. Work stress, the kids, ... I messed up. I'm so ashamed." Her voice sounded genuinely sorry, and once upon a time, I would have believed her. Back then, I would have grabbed onto any scrap of affection, any excuse to feel like part of the family again. But that time had passed. "Adrian, I appreciate the apology," I said, "but it's been nearly 2 weeks. You didn't look for me, didn't call, didn't even ask if I was safe, if I had a place to sleep, something to eat. I thought you'd come back in a few days." Her voice turned defensive, soft. "When you didn't, I wanted to call. I just didn't know how to make it right. And now you do. Mom, please." Her voice cracked, shifting from guilt to desperation. "Let's meet. Let's talk. The kids miss you. They keep asking when Grandma's coming home." I closed my eyes. Flora and Ezekiel. No matter what their mother did, I missed those two with everything in me. They weren't responsible for Adrian's choices. "Okay," I said. "Let's meet. But not at your place." "Of course," Adrian said quickly. "Where would you feel okay?" I picked Glory's coffee shop, neutral ground. Safe ground. 3 tomorrow, Adrienne offered. "I'll grab the kids after school and bring them." "All right," I said. "See you then." I hung up and sat by the window, staring out still. Her call didn't surprise me, but it cracked open things I'd tried to close for good. A part of me still loved my daughter, that never really left, but another part of me had learned to brace for letdowns. I wasn't the same woman she left behind. I had my own life now, my own stability. I didn't lean on Adrian anymore. Not for money, not for love. The next day, I got to Glory's half an hour early. She already had my favorite herbal tea waiting, placed gently in front of me, with a warm smile. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "Strange," I said. "I don't know what's about to happen. Just remember," Glory told me, "calm and steady. You hold the cards now. You can let them in, or you can walk away. It's all up to you." I nodded, quietly grateful. She was right. The ground had shifted. At exactly 3, the door opened. Adrian walked in with the kids, her hair perfect, her outfit sharp, makeup done, like always, but there was something unfamiliar on her face, nerves, maybe even fear. She scanned the room, eyes moving fast until she found me. When we locked eyes, she froze. I'd changed so much: haircut, clothes, posture. She didn't recognize me right away. "Mom?" she asked, walking up slow. "Hi, Adrian," I said, then turned toward the kids. "Hey, my loves, Grandma." Flora came running, hugging me tight. "You look so cool." Ezekiel, quieter, gave me a shy smile. "Hi, Grandma. We missed you." "I missed you too, sweethearts." I hugged them both, trying to swallow the tightness in my throat. Adrian stood a few steps back, watching us. After a moment, she sat down. "You look beautiful, Mom," she said with a forced smile, like someone totally new. "That's exactly how I feel," I replied. "A lot's changed." Just then, Glory came over to take our order. Adrian got coffee for herself and milkshakes for the kids. When Glory stepped away, it got awkward, so Adrian started messing with her napkin. "Are you staying with your friend now?" she asked. I shook my head. "No, I rented an apartment close by. It's a good spot." She blinked, caught off guard. "I thought we were hoping you'd come home." There it was, the real reason she invited me out. "Why, Adrian?" I asked straight. "Why would I come back?" She put on a look of surprise. "Of course you would. We're family. We belong together. The kids miss you. And honestly, so do I. The house doesn't feel right without you." I took a sip of my tea. "That's interesting. 2 weeks ago, I was nothing but a burden and a threat to your family. What changed?" Her face went pale. She didn't see that coming. "Mom," she said, trying to smooth it over. "I'm sorry. I wasn't myself. Work's been stressful. I was exhausted." I nodded. "Sure. I also know people don't show who they really are when things are fine. They show it when everything goes sideways." "That night, you said what you meant." "That's not true," Adrian snapped, then looked over at the kids, who were listening a little too closely. "Guys, go pick something sweet from the display." "Okay." Once they were gone, she leaned in and lowered her voice. "Mom, I'm sorry about that night. It was awful. I know that. But we can make things right. We can start over. The family should be together." "What about my health?" I asked, still worried I'll get the kids sick. "You look fine," she said quickly. "And if anything comes up, we'll find a good doctor." She paused, catching herself. She realized what she just gave away. "There it is," I said with a dry smile. "Now that I've got some money, I'm no longer a burden, right? Now I'm healthy enough for the family again." "Mom, you're getting it all wrong." Adrian tried to backtrack. "It's not about the money. It's about family. We're supposed to support each other, like you did when I got sick." I asked quietly. "How you tossed me out with $7 to my name." "I told you I was sorry," she said, her tone sharpening. "What more do you want? You want me to crawl?" "Yeah, I screwed up. I made a huge mistake, but we can fix it. Come back. We'll set up a room for you, whatever you need." I looked at her and saw her clearly. She wasn't ashamed of what she'd done, just ashamed she'd let go of something valuable. I remembered the last time we fought, the way she said, "I don't need a sick mother." She meant it. And now I was sitting across from someone playing a part. The kids came back with slices of cake, and that ended the talk. I spent the next hour listening to them chatter about school, their friends, what they were into lately. They talked over each other, so full of energy. I missed that. When it was time to leave, Adrian tried one more time. "Think about it, Mom. The kids would love it. And you'd be better off with us than alone." "I'm not alone, Adrian," I said quietly. "I've made some good friends. I'm taking photography classes. I'm planning a trip to Italy. I've got my own life now." Her face pulled tight. "A trip, a class. Mom, at your age, you need rest, care." I smiled. "I'm 62, not 92. And I feel great, especially now that I get to do the things I've always wanted." Adrian didn't know what to say. "But what about us?" she asked, sounding more frustrated than concerned. "What about family?" I said I'd always be happy to see the kids. They're welcome to visit me anytime. We can go for walks, catch a movie, hang out at the park. But I'm not going back to your house, Adrian. Not ever. "Is this about the money?" she asked, eyes narrowing. "You've got money now and don't want to share with your family." That's what she came for. That's what this was really about. Whatever doubts I still had vanished. "No, Adrian," I said, keeping my voice steady. "It's not about the money. It's about respect. It's about finally understanding that deserve more than being used when it's convenient and discarded when it's not. I looked at my grandkids. Come visit me anytime, sweethearts, I'll always be glad to see you. I left cash for the bill on the table, kissed the kids, and walked out of that coffee shop with her stunned expression burned into the back of my mind. That night, Franklin called. We decided to have dinner at a small place not far from where I live now. Over dinner, I told him everything about my run-in with Adrienne. You did the right thing, he said, reaching across the table to cover my hand. You can't let anyone decide your worth, not even your own blood. I stared into my glass. You know, I would have forgiven her before. I would have gone back, convinced I should just be grateful for the scraps of attention I got. But not anymore. Now I know I deserve respect. I deserve to be loved. I deserve a life that's mine, not one shaped by what's easy for everyone else. Franklin smiled. So the real win wasn't the lottery, but finding yourself. That's right, I said, smiling back, though the money didn't hurt. We laughed, and slowly, the weight from that afternoon started to lift. I had so much to look forward to. Photography classes, a trip to Italy, new friends, maybe even someone new to share things with. A week passed after that coffee shop scene. Adrienne called every day, trying to get me to come back, but I held firm. Finally, she asked to meet one last time. Her words. I said yes, thinking it was time to lay everything out clearly. We agreed to meet at my new place, just the two of us, no kids, just a straight-up conversation between adults. She showed up right on time, looking polished as ever. Makeup perfect, outfit just right. But her eyes had something different in them, not regret, more like strategy. Come on in, I said, stepping aside. She walked in, took her time scanning the room. I could see her expression shift when she took in the new furniture, the appliances, the little touches that made the place mine. Looks like you're settling in, she said, voice calm, but I heard the envy tucked just underneath. Thanks, I gestured to the couch. Have a seat, tea, coffee. No, I'm good, she said, placing her purse next to her as she sat. I won't take long. I just wanted to talk again about where things stand. I sat across from her, bracing for whatever guilt trip she had lined up. I've been thinking, Mom, she started, about us, about that night. I made mistakes. I see that now. We all screw up sometimes, right? Sure, I nodded. But not every mistake can be fixed. But ours can, she said, leaning in, locking eyes. With me, we're family. That's supposed to matter more than anything. I used to believe that too, I said. Until that night, I said I was sorry, she snapped, irritation slipping into her voice. How many times do I have to say it? It's not about saying sorry, Adrienne. I shook my head. It's about finally seeing things clearly, seeing what she asked, brows pulling together. Seeing what I really was to you all these years, I said, voice calm. Free childcare, a cook, a maid, not your mother, not your kid's grandmother, just someone you could use. That's not true, Adrienne shot back. You've always been there for us. Helpful, I cut in. That's the word you want. I was helpful, until I got sick. Then I was a problem, then I was something to toss aside. Adrienne started to speak, but I raised my hand to stop her. Let me finish. I've been sitting with this for a long time, and I need to get it out. She leaned back against the couch, arms crossed, and gave me a small nod. You know what I've come to realize these past few weeks? I said, that my whole life, I've been living for other people. First for Mom and Dad, then for Wendell, then for you, and your kids after that. I've always been in the background, always the support, never the one who mattered. What I wanted, what I needed, it never came first. And I accepted it. Figured that was just how it was supposed to be. I paused to steady myself. But the day you kicked me out, something shifted. For the first time in years, I was alone. No obligations, no one to answer to, no one to please. It scared the hell out of me, but it also felt like freedom. Mom, I'm not done, I cut her off, my tone gentle but firm. Then that wild thing with the lottery happened. At first I thought, okay, it's just dumb luck, just money. But now I see it for what it really was, a second chance, a shot at finally living on my own terms. Adrienne didn't say anything, but I could see her jaw tighten, so I took it. At 62, I decided to actually live, travel, take pictures, be around people who see me, not just what I can do for them. And in this life I'm building, there's no place for people who treat me like I'm disposable. She snapped, cold and sharp. So there's no space for family in this new life of yours. There's no space for people who only come around when they want something, I said. For people who don't care about me, just what I have. Adrienne shot up off the couch, face twisted with anger. So, that's what this is. You think I'm after your money, weren't you? I said, still sitting, still calm. You're impossible, she spat. I came here to try and reconnect, and all you can do is accuse me, Adrienne. My voice stayed low, but it didn't waver. Let's just be real for once. If I hadn't won the lottery, you wouldn't be here. I'd still be the sick, inconvenient mom you couldn't be bothered with. She didn't argue, just clamped her mouth shut, lips pulled into a thin, angry line. Fine, she finally said. You want the truth, here it is. Yeah, we need the money. Daryl's business is tanking, and we're drowning in debt. I came hoping you'd help, because we're family. But I see now you're just playing the wounded, bitter old woman. I'm not playing Adrienne. I'm just done pretending. And the truth is, you don't need a mother. You need a wallet. So what? She threw up her hands. That's what parents do. They help their kids. It's normal. It's nature. Parents help the kids who love and respect them, who take care of them when they're down, I said. Not the ones who toss them out like garbage and leave them with $7 to their name. I already said I was sorry, Adrienne shouted. How many times do I have to say it? It's not about how many times you say it. I shook my head. It's that I don't believe it anymore. So you're not giving us the money, she said, straight to the point. No, Adrienne, I said. Not now, not ever. You didn't need your sick mother, so you won't need my money either. Her face twisted in rage. You'll regret this, she said, low and bitter. I swear to God, you'll regret it. You'll never see your grandkids again. That's your choice, I said, my chest tightening at the thought of Lillian and Ezekiel. But think hard about what you'll tell them. That Grandma didn't hand over money, so she's not worth loving anymore. Don't you dare tell me how to raise my kids. Adrienne grabbed her purse and headed for the door. You're nothing to me now. You're dead to this family. Goodbye, Adrienne, I said softly as she paused in the doorway. I've loved you every day of your life, and I'll love you no matter what. But I won't let you or anyone else use that love against me again. She slammed the door so hard it rattled the walls. I stood there, alone in the quiet apartment, feeling something between resentment and relief. It felt like I'd finally dropped a burden I'd been carrying my entire life. I walked over to the window and looked out. Adrienne was climbing into her car, her face twisted with rage. She yanked the door shut and took off so fast she nearly clipped the neighbor's bumper. I watched her taillights vanish and knew that part of my life was over for good. That night I called Franklin and told him what went down. He let me speak without jumping in, then said, "You did the right thing. Sometimes the hardest decision is the only right one." The next day, Franklin and I drove out to the house I'd checked out a week earlier. It was a small, warm cottage by the lake, 20 minutes outside Clearwater, peaceful, scenic, a good place to start fresh. "Do you like it?" Franklin asked, as we stood on the bank, looking out over the still water. "I love it," I said with a smile. I'd always wanted to live near the water. Wendell thought it was unrealistic, and by the time he didn't, it was too late. "It's not too late now," he said, reaching for my hand. "Now, you get to go after everything you've ever wanted." I signed the papers and closed on the house that same day. It took some time, but 3 weeks later, I was moving in. Franklin pitched in with the heavy lifting, and Glory threw a small housewarming with a few close friends. "For the first time, this house is mine," I said, holding up my champagne glass on the porch. "Not my parents', not my husband's, not my daughter's, mine. To a new home and a new life," Franklin said, raising his glass. The others joined in, and something warm opened up in my chest. I had people around me. I had a man who seemed to really care, and I finally had the home I'd always wanted. A week after settling in, I visited the local animal shelter. I'd wanted a dog all my life, but Wendell wouldn't have it, and in Adrienne's house, it was never an option. Now I could make my own choices. That's when I saw her, a golden retriever with tired eyes. The staff told me her name was Daisy. She was 7, and she'd ended up there after her owner passed away. Nobody wanted the older dogs. Everyone wanted puppies. "You and me, we're like Daisy," I whispered, running my hand along her fur, starting over with some years behind us. She looked at me like she understood, and that was it. She was coming home. Daisy adjusted fast. She became a part of my daily rhythm. We'd walk the lake trail every morning, and I'd snap photos of the sunrise, the light hitting the water, the birds in flight. The love for photography I'd buried in marriage came back to life. I signed up for an advanced course at the local college and met others who shared the same passion. They were a mix of folks, some still in school, others already retired. We'd plan photo outings together, spend time in the woods or by the water, talk gear, talk technique. For the first time in my life, I had a group of people around me who cared about the same things I did, not out of obligation, not because we shared blood, but because we genuinely enjoyed the same craft. Franklin started staying over more often, and about 2 months after I moved in, he asked if he should just bring his things. "We're past the whole dating stage," he said. "I think we both know what this is." I told him yes. At 62, there's no sense in putting off joy. You start to feel the weight of each day, how quickly it can disappear. What Franklin and I had was nothing like my marriage to Wendell. No rigid roles, no quiet resentment, no one always giving in. We respected each other's space, and we shared what we loved. He encouraged my photography, and I'd listen as he talked through the chapters of the historical novels he'd started writing after retirement. In October, when the maples around the lake turned that deep, fire-red color, we finally took that trip to Italy we'd been dreaming about. We wandered the streets of Rome, stood in awe in the galleries of Florence, floated past the old buildings in Venice. I took pictures of it all, and each night we'd scroll through the day's photos and talk about what we'd seen. I never thought I'd become a traveler this late in life. I told Franklin that, one evening in a little restaurant in Tuscany, with the sun setting behind rows of vines, "I never thought I'd meet a woman my age who'd turn my world around," he said, lifting his glass. "Here's to us and our new life." After Italy, we started planning a spring trip to France, maybe Greece or Spain after that. Suddenly, the world felt wide open, and I wanted to take in as much of it as I could. I never heard from Adrienne. There were moments I missed my grandkids. I called a few times, left messages, but her phone was always off. No replies. I held on to the hope that maybe, when they got older, the kids might want to find their way back to me. Until then, I tried to let go of the things I couldn't fix. One afternoon, walking Daisy through Clearwater, I bumped into Adrienne's neighbor, Mrs. Granger. She told me Adrienne had hit a rough patch. Her husband, Daryl, had lost his job, and they'd sold the house. Now they were crammed into a small apartment on the edge of town. "They say he put all their savings into some venture and lost it all," Mrs. Granger said. "Your daughter's working double shifts now, just to keep things going." I felt that sharp twist of regret in my chest. Even after everything that happened, Adrienne was still my daughter, and the last thing I wanted was to hurt her. But I knew that any effort on my part to reach out would be seen as her win, like I'd finally caved and handed over what she'd been after all along, my money. I told Mrs. Granger to let her know that if the kids ever wanted to come visit their grandmother, the door was always open. She promised she would, though I doubted Adrienne would take it seriously. Life moved forward. My first solo photo show at a small gallery nearby turned out to be a surprise hit. A few pieces sold, and an art shop owner from the next town offered me a permanent spot in his store. "You're becoming a celebrity," Franklin joked as we hung up the prints for the next show. "Starting a photography career at 62 is definitely new." I laughed, though deep down, I felt proud. For once, I was doing something that wasn't for someone else, and people were actually noticing. On my 63rd birthday, Franklin threw me a surprise party at our lake house. He invited all the friends I'd made over the past year. Glory and her husband, our neighbors, fellow photographers, even Sterling and his family. The house was filled with voices, music, laughter. "To Fidelia," Franklin said, raising his glass, as everyone gathered around the table. "To the woman who proved life can start at any age. To the woman who taught me how to love again. To the woman who never quits." Everyone raised their glasses, and I looked around at these faces. People who had become my people, and I felt nothing but gratitude. Just a year ago, I was a lonely woman with no place of her own, living in someone else's house. Now, I was finally in charge of my own life, surrounded by love, making plans that were mine alone. After the guests left, Franklin and I sat out on the porch, watching the stars ripple on the surface of the lake. Daisy dozed at our feet, letting out the occasional sleepy sigh. "Happy?" Franklin asked, sliding his arm around my shoulder. "Very," I said, leaning into him. "I've spent nearly my entire life serving others. my parents, my husband, my daughter. Always the one in the background, always the one sacrificing, until the day my own daughter threw me out of her house just because I got sick. And then, in the middle of that storm, I pulled myself back up, thanks to a winning lottery ticket. But the real lesson I took from all of it wasn't about the $800,000. It was this: even at 62, even after being dismissed, treated like a burden, you can still start over. You deserve a life you choose for yourself, a place where you're respected, truly loved, not because you're useful, but because you're used. And I genuinely want to ask those of you who've followed my story to this point, if you were me, would you forgive? Would you go back to someone who treated you like something nice to have, but easy to throw away? Tell me. I truly want to hear from you. And may God bless you, the way He once blessed me.